I'm joined here by Adam Walsh from Fight and Fit in Manchester. So, Adam, obviously, first pro fight coming up. How are you feeling about it? And are you feeling fairly confident?
Yeah, I'm feeling really confident. Nothing's really changed in like preparation for this fight. I think just because I train 6 times a week anyway, in just the normal classes, and then obviously with the added team sessions on top, even as an amateur. So I don't think that anything's really changed too much now that I'm transitioning to pro. So I was already training full time anyway. So everything's going good, and I feel really confident. Yeah.
I always ask people why do they get into fighting, but I'm more interested to ask you what made you choose it as a career instead of saying doing anything else and saying this is what I want to do as a living.
Right. So I was watching Dominic Cruz versus Demetrius Johnson one night in like I think it was like 2012. I can't remember when the fight was, and that was the first fight I ever watched. Like that I really sat down and watched the entire thing, and like because beforehand I'd obviously thought maybe it was like quite barbaric or whatever, and I watched them too. I having never watched an MMA fight before, and I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. But it was more the grappling side of things because I was grappling quite a lot. So I came, started doing jiu-jitsu, and then after like maybe 2 weeks, I was like, yeah, I want to do this, like for a career, and for the foreseeable future.
So a lot of people, when they're going into pro MMA, they're doing it for, say, a quick paycheck or things like that. But how do you want to do it? Do you want to go into the UFC and be remembered for everything?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to go in there, have one or two fights, and that could be anywhere, not just the UFC, any other big promotion. I don't just want to go in there, one or two fights, and that's it. Just leave it at that. I want to go in there. I want to be remembered. I want to not just build a legacy for myself, but I also want to change MMA. I think a lot of it, not necessarily for me, but just more for MMA in general. I don't think that MMA fighters, I know it's a bit of a tangent, but I don't think MMA fighters get paid enough at the top level. You look at guys in like other huge organizations, and you see in different sports, and you see how much they're getting paid. It's not acceptable that you've got guys who are in the UFC, which is supposed to be like the premier organization, getting paid fucking pennies compared to these other guys in other sports who obviously they work hard, but maybe this for example American football, they might sit on a bench, they'll earn like millions just from sitting on the bench, which obviously they work hard in training and everything like that, but I mean MMA fighters don't get to sit outside the cage for your fight, so I think that I want to go in there and I want to change the way that whole dynamic is, from like the way people get paid. Like at the moment you see guys who are at the very, very top, they get paid quite well, but even then though they could be getting paid more, you know and I just think that it should be more even across the board, and I don't just not just for the UFC. It's not acceptable for any big organization to only be paying out, you see guys who are still getting paid like 12,000 that are on like the prelims and stuff like that, and it's just, to me it's just disheartening to see that for other people. I don't really care, like I'm not in it for the money, but maybe some people are, and if that's the case there's nothing wrong with it, but how are they supposed to earn their money that way if they're only getting paid 12 grand, and then you've got to pay out for a training camp, you've got to pay out for your own flights and stuff like that. So yeah.
And obviously, a lot of people struggle with that jump. Let's say a few years ago, say the amateur to professional jump, but these days it seems the amateur level in England is so high. Do you feel like you're already really well prepared for that professional jump and you're already ready for some big names there?
I think if I wasn't, I wouldn't have gone pro. I felt like even last year, I thought maybe I could have done it, but I thought I'll stick around in the amateurs for a little bit more. You don't get to third ranked by being a bum, so I'm gonna. I think I'm ready to jump straight into pros. Build myself up, and then hopefully get picked up by a big organization.
And obviously, you had a very good amateur record: 7 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss. Obviously, those 7 wins, absolutely amazing. What I really want to know is, obviously, you went on a 5-fight win streak at first. How did you cope with the loss you had, and how did you come back from it? And obviously, you came back stronger than ever. You could be seeing that fight against Corey Fry when you dominated him. So how did you pick yourself up after that?
Well, it's tough because it was like an entire year off. I just think I had to figure out how to uh, lose. After that loss, it was like the immediate like months afterwards. I was pretty. I wouldn't necessarily say devastated, but I was more shocked than anything. Um, it was just a strange feeling, and weirdly enough, I had the same feeling when I watched Anderson Silva lose like against Weidman for the first time. So it was like I had that same feeling of like, I mean, obviously, I'm not Anderson Silva, but I just mean in terms of like seeing someone who I really like lose, and then obviously, seeing myself lose as well. I was just like, damn, this sucks. That was exact like I had no words. All I could think was this sucks. Like when I watched Anderson Silva lose, I was like, damn, this sucks. And then I lost, and I was like, damn, this sucks. So I think I just had to learn how to lose. But the year off that I had, I think I needed. I don't think I could have gone in there any quicker than that, because it was such a mental thing of like, I wouldn't necessarily say I was like worried about losing again. It was just more I had to figure out how to come back from that loss. And it took me a year, but I did.
So obviously your first pro fight coming up on the 8th of June against Hossein Dabari, and what I would like to know is, where would you like to see yourself at the 8th of June next year into your pro career?
Yeah. I think I'd like to see myself with at least 4 or 5 fights under my belt, 4 or 5 wins, and then hopefully look to start to get picked up by at least a reputable organization. I think that it might sound like maybe a little bit naive to think that, having only been a year into the pro game, but I've been in this game now for 7 years, so I'm starting to feel like an old man, despite it not being half as long as some other people. But yeah, I want to start to get the ball rolling, because the amateur game I was there for like 3-4 years, and I feel like I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. I think the only thing I missed out on was winning an amateur title. Thanks, Weight Cut. But yeah, I think that's where I want to be in a year's time.